Right, this is a Bachmann Big Hauler that I've picked up. I saw something quite inspirational at the Barnsley model show, so I'm just in the process of pulling it apart. I've taken the timber load off, some of the the mechanism that is used for uncoupling on the real things, some of the wire handrails, the gas tanks which were mounted on the side of the boiler, the cow catcher from the front, and I'm just generally unplugging screws, but that's still recognisable as the Bachmann Big Hauler. Its tender is over there. If you like fancy work, there's let's turn it that way. Nice fancy painting on the front lamp and the spark arresting chimney and these various domes. So it's been prettily liveried, you might say. However, that's not what I want to run around my garden, so I'm in the process of reconfiguring it. Prising bits of this big hauler apart, I've just prised the front of the smoke box off, and seen there's a switch underneath, so presumably the smoke box door opens, and there I see on the front a little catch. Yeah. If I open the catch, then yeah, the door does indeed open to reveal a switch. Well, that's quite useful. Direction and remote. Anyway, there we go. Just a little note, in terms of undoing screws to get the thing apart, that one in that hole there holds the motor block together, so does that one. And this third screw along there doesn't need to be undone. However, that one there underneath the front of the front bogie, if you do recognise the front of this thing, does need to be undone. It's a long screw. It goes through the mechanism and also holds the pistons, steam chests in place. So that one needs to be undone. But the one I've taken out, which doesn't need to come out for you to separate the chassis from the body, is that one. And at that point then you can separate chassis and body. All that's keeping them attached together is the wire that's going up towards the smoke unit and the switch at the front, and there isn't a plug on this one to disconnect it. Right, let's see where we've got to with this little big hauler, the Bachmann little big hauler. The first thing I've noticed is that it doesn't look as if the smoke unit has been used. So perhaps the previous owner had never opened the smoke box door and turned it on. And as I showed in another video, you can open the smoke box door to reveal a switch to the smoke unit. There's the smoke unit out of this machine, looking clean and pristine. Now, a lot of the parts are glued on. These domes on top, whether they're sand domes or steam domes, are glued on. The light just clips in the front lamp, which is that bit. And so you have to prise carefully with a screwdriver at the seam to take them off. These are rather ornate domes and not appropriate for my modelling. I was looking at what changes can be made, and like one of the Barnsley Club members, I can shorten the front, the smoke box part of the boiler by 1 band, to bring it back to there and remove the bit that holds the lamp. The other thing I can do to give a little bit more room in the cab is move the back head forward a little bit. What I've found is that the actual back head modelling part will slide up from the, it slides up off the back, so the way it's attached onto the back, sorry, let's have a look if I can hold that still. It just slides on, so if you can get something underneath it at the back and slide it up, that will release that part. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to shorten the firebox inside the cab by a little bit. The bit that hangs below the cab, which is modelled as part of the chassis, will look a bit strange then to people who look a little more closely. But it will give more room to put some figures inside the cab. And the thing about this model was that the cab roof was damaged anyway, glued and repaired, and so I may well put a new cab roof on to it. We'll have a look at that. So that's the progress so far today. Let's pull back because when it's zoomed in it's going to be a bit more shaky. And the limits to how much you can move things are, without a lot of work, are the chassis and the weights here on the chassis, which provide for the traction, obviously sighted over the motor, are positioned such that I can't move the rear part of the boiler forward much. Having said that, there is plenty of room in front of that weight. There's a large open part of this boiler here, plenty of room in there for all sorts of things if you did want to put something. There was a battery operated version of this at one time, so no reason why that weight shouldn't be moved forwards. Let's have a look at that. Removing the weight, there's a weight there, removing that weight exposes the motor and gearbox, and on this model it's possible to see that there's a worm on the gearbox and that it's got a metal frame on there. It doesn't have any bulges on the bottom, but that looks as though it's a later model. I don't know how to tell Mark 1, 2, 3 or 4 from these big hauler models, but there we are. That is the motor and gearbox assembly inside this particular big hauler. Right, the next stage of disassembly. The wires that do disconnect are the wires that connect onto the wipers down here. So that here are the pickups from the axles of those wheels. You can see the wires that are coming from the pony truck at the front bogie. Also connected to the wipers, and then red and black, which I think I've got the right way around. It'll be a pain in the neck if I get it the wrong way around. Connected to the motor, and you can see the bottom part of the motor and gearbox there. If I can hold it steady enough, I can zoom in just so you can see how it is. It's the motor with the metal-sided gearbox and just a two-stage reduction gear. You can see the brass part of the axles which the pickups rub against, and this mechanism here where there's a conducting strip embedded into the axle is the chuff generator. So as that front wheel rotates, it makes contact on those two contacts here to trigger the chuff of the sound unit. And some people recommend embedding a couple more conductors into there to increase the chuff from 2 per revolution to 4 per revolution. So that then is the underside. I'll get my pan back again. We can see the basic arrangement of that. It's only a matter of a couple of screws, 2-3 screws, to take that bottom part of the motor gearbox assembly off and to see where the chuffing is coming from. I've just put the bottom plate back onto the motor just to check that things are still working. And everything seems to be going fine. Why is that so dark? Oh, get a bit more light onto it there. Obviously no load, just running freely on the rolling road there. No reason to suspect there's anything particularly wrong. I don't think this particular loco has seen much use. It's not worn. I think the Pico or Pico locomotives that I got from the same source have seen a lot more use. Here I am adding the running board to the front. In order to disguise the hole left by the air cylinders or vacuum cylinders, all I've done is put some plastic tape over, which moulds to the body quite well, and then I'm using this square strip that you buy like bundles of rocket sticks. If you're fortunate enough to have a load of rocket sticks, they will work just as well. Sorry about that. And then some plastic card trimmed to shape, and I've got to just trim that to shape, glue it onto there, and then we've got running board coming all the way to the front, and then we'll just have to see what other treatment we give it. A buffer beam I think is next. You'll see the rest of it when it's finished, but I've cut the back of the cab off, shortened the boiler inside, shortened the front of the boiler here.